Disrespect does not begin with cruelty, hatred, or malice. It begins with permission. No one wakes up deciding to undermine you. What they do instead is test. They observe how you respond to small violations and then adjust their behavior accordingly. Once they learn that crossing you produces no consequence, the behavior escalates naturally. This is not emotional behavior, it is structural. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw that power dynamics are governed by consequence, not intention, and that respect is enforced long before it is ever spoken aloud. Most men believe respect is earned through patience, kindness, loyalty, and effort. They assume that if they show enough goodwill, others will reciprocate. Machiavelli rejected this idea entirely. He observed that goodwill without leverage creates vulnerability. When you attempt to earn respect by explaining yourself, justifying your actions, or appealing to fairness, you signal dependence, and dependence invites exploitation. Power does not explain itself. Power acts and allows others to draw conclusions. Respect thrives where reactions are predictable. When someone interrupts you and you respond by talking louder, you confirm that the interruption affected you. When someone mocks you and you laugh it off, you teach them that humiliation is safe. When someone delays you and you remain available, you communicate that your time is negotiable. These responses do not preserve peace. They train others on how far they can go. Machiavelli warned that men are driven by necessity, not morality. If disrespect costs nothing, it will continue. The fastest way to end disrespect is not confrontation, argument, or emotional expression. It is consequence delivered without commentary. When access is removed, attention is withdrawn, and warmth disappears without explanation, the psychological dynamic changes immediately. People do not need speeches to understand boundaries. They need to feel that something has shifted. Loss creates awareness far faster than dialogue ever could. Machiavelli emphasized fear of loss over fear of punishment, because punishment creates enemies, while loss creates obedience. When someone realizes they no longer have access to your time, your energy, or your presence, they begin to reassess their behavior. This is not cruelty, it is calibration. Human beings adapt rapidly when incentives change. Disrespect collapses when it becomes expensive. Most men fail here because they are afraid to walk away. They fear losing relationships, opportunities, or approval. Machiavelli understood that leverage only exists when you are willing to lose what is being used against you. If someone knows you need them emotionally, socially, or professionally, they will test you. When they realize your life does not revolve around them, the testing stops. This is why argument never works. Arguments assume equality of investment, but in most disrespectful dynamics, the investment is unequal. The person who cares more loses power. Explaining yourself reveals that you need to be understood. Needing to be understood places you beneath the judgment of others. Power does not require understanding. It requires alignment with consequence. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness. In reality, silence backed by independence is one of the strongest signals of authority. When someone disrespects you and receives no emotional response, they lose the feedback loop they were expecting. When that silence is followed by reduced access, something breaks in their internal model of you. They begin to question whether they miscalculated. Machiavelli observed that reputation is shaped as much by absence as by presence. When people do not know where you stand, they fear misstepping. When they fear misstepping, they regulate their behavior. This is why powerful men are often quiet, not because they lack confidence, but because they understand that uncertainty creates discipline in others. Boundaries are not verbal declarations. Boundaries are behavioral realities. Saying, "Don't disrespect me," without consequence teaches others that your words are hollow. Becoming expensive to disrespect
changes everything. That expense must be immediate, consistent, and unemotional. No warnings, no lectures, no explanations framed as generosity. Mercy without power is interpreted as weakness. This principle applies across all domains of life. In relationships, the man who argues loses attraction, while the man who calmly withdraws gains respect. In professional environments, the employee who over-explains loses authority, while the one who documents quietly and disengages becomes untouchable. In social groups, the man who overshares becomes predictable, while the man who limits access becomes influential. Most men confuse withdrawal with manipulation. True withdrawal is not performed to provoke a reaction. It is done to reassert internal sovereignty. You are not trying to punish anyone. You are protecting your position. When your energy is no longer freely available, others must decide whether to recalibrate or lose access permanently. Machiavelli warned against engaging in minor conflicts because they create resentment without resolution. If a conflict must occur, it must end decisively. In modern life, decisiveness means removing yourself from environments where you are undervalued. It means reallocating your time toward people, work, and pursuits that reinforce your position rather than erode it. Disrespect persists only when it is tolerated repeatedly. The moment it results in loss, the behavior either stops or the person removes themselves from your life. Both outcomes are victories. Respect is not universal, it is selective. You are not meant to be accessible to everyone. This is where most men encounter internal resistance. They confuse boundaries with cruelty and withdrawal with abandonment. In reality, self-respect is not aggressive, it is non-negotiable. When you stop negotiating your worth, others adjust automatically. Machiavelli understood that men who seek to be loved are easily manipulated. Men who are willing to be disliked, but not disrespected, command stability. Love fluctuates, approval fades, consequence remains. When people know there is a cost to crossing you, they behave accordingly. Power is not loud. Power is subtraction. Subtract your attention. Subtract your availability. Subtract your emotional labor. Let the absence do the work. When people no longer feel entitled to you, they regulate themselves. This does not mean becoming cold or cruel. It means becoming disciplined. You choose where your energy goes. You choose who has access. You choose which behaviors you tolerate. These choices shape your environment far more than words ever could. Once you stop needing approval, disrespect has nowhere to land. When disrespect has nowhere to land, it disappears permanently. This is not dominance through intimidation, it is dominance through independence. Machiavelli did not teach men to be ruthless for the sake of ego. He taught them to be unavailable to manipulation, especially their own emotional impulses. When you no longer react reflexively, when you no longer explain defensively, when you no longer chase understanding, your presence changes. People sense that crossing you carries consequences, even if those consequences are never spoken. That is how disrespect ends. Not through confrontation, but through structure. Not through anger, but through absence. Not through demand, but through inevitability. And once that structure is in place, the world adjusts to you.